I mean, obviously I've followed you for a long time and I've known you as an actress and, you know, an outspoken person. And I've noticed that like you are not a shy person. I feel like you're one of the few celebrities who has spoken up on things from women's issues and now on Asian American attacks. Can you talk to me a little bit about, you know, how important is it for people like you with your kind of platform to speak out on issues like this?
It's an interesting question, because even without a platform, I think I would be speaking up on things that matter to me. It's something that my mother has always instilled in me and told me how important it is to speak up on things when you see an injustice happening. So doing it now that I have a platform, it really honestly, it just means that I have more people that can hear the message, and that means something, especially with what happened recently with my friend Sam. You know, just the fact that I had this platform and had the reach, it allowed the NYPD to have so many more resources and tips, and the internet helped us find this guy. So you know, speaking up is always something that's important to me, but having a bigger platform obviously means you can reach more people and make bigger changes.
What did you think when they were able to make an arrest about a day after your post?
That was incredible. When I first found out and I saw there were pictures, I went on to Twitter and Instagram and just asked the internet to help us. And I also DM'd the NYPD on Instagram and sent them the pictures and said, could you help us amplify this? And then they made a wanted poster really quickly. And then the very next morning I wake up early and I have a DM from the NYPD saying, hey, because of social media, because of the post going viral and all the people sending in tips, we were able to find the guy and arrest him. And it was a really emotional day. We've been going through so much in our community, and going through this over the last year, you know, the astronomical spike in hate crimes against Asian Americans, and actually Asians in all communities where we're marginalized. You know, I have friends in London tell me about that. Gemma Chan speaks about that it's happening in London as well. And, you know, we go through all of these struggles and hate crimes, and just there's so much pain, and it feels like we haven't been seen. And to wake up that morning and see that overnight the people had come up and stepped up for us and said, hey, we're going to help you find this guy, and they actually found him, and the NYPD were actually able to do an arrest. It was just a very emotional moment because I felt that our people were seen.
That's beautifully put. For folks who may not be friends with someone like you, or who may be reluctant to report, because often that's a cultural thing, there's language barriers. Asian Americans typically want to just go about our business and, you know, things happen to us, but we don't want to raise a ruckus about it. Sam even told me that actually initially his mom came home, she sort of had her back to him. She didn't want him to see her face. And then when he found out what happened, she didn't really want to go to police about it. So what would you say to folks who feel like, I'm not friends with Olivia Munn, I don't have this kind of voice? How would you encourage them to speak up and to report these crimes?
Well, tag me. I'll look for it, and I'll try to help you as much as I can. You know, we are a family. You know, all of us. You know, all of the marginalized communities in this country. We are family, and we need to stick by each other. So, tag me. I'll try to look for it. I'll try to help as much as I can. But, you know, just know that we're in a time in this world right now where people are hearing and seeing what's going on to us, and not just us, but the Black community as well. We saw that happen during the summer, and people are more aware of it. And when you speak up, people do care. I mean, the NYPD, they went and brought Sam's mom egg tarts because she was in line at the bakery to get egg tarts, and she wasn't able to get them because she was hurled in the air and knocked unconscious, and then had to go to the ER. And the NYPD didn't have to do that, and they brought her egg tarts. I mean, there is so much goodness in the world. You know, there's so many people with such good hearts, and so if you can learn to not be afraid and not to just bury your own pain, you'll see that there are so many people in our world who want to help us. And also by speaking up, by doing this, it's going to stop other people from doing it to more of our elders, to more people in our community. You know, it's not enough just for you to take it on the chin. You know, you have to speak up so that it helps everyone else.
Yeah, it shows justice can be achieved. It shows action can be taken. And obviously, you can't manage something unless you measure it. So they need to hear these voices. They need to hear
Yeah.
these reports. You brought up something about, you know, allies and partnerships across different groups of people of color. And I think that that's really important. I want you to kind of talk about that. You know, how do you encourage people to stand together against this, that it's not about pitting different groups of people of color against each other?
Sam and I's mutual friend, David Yee, he had said, you cannot be anti-racist in this country without acknowledging the Asian American experience. And, you know, we see a lot of people speak up on a lot of issues lately, especially Black Lives Matter. And there's been this word that's been thrown out, performative. And people are starting to learn, what does performative mean? What does that really mean? And performative is when people are doing it simply just to perform. You know, they're doing it just for the looks of it. If I post this, if I story this, if I say hashtag, you know, Black Lives Matters, and that means that like I stand as an ally. But the truth is, when if you stand as an ally, it means you are anti-racist, you are against racism, you stand against it, you stand for us. And what we're really seeing is people who, what I'm actually seeing is people who are being silent during this. I'm clocking the friends of mine who are liking and not liking, the ones who are storying and not storying, and it's
You're keeping
troubling.
receipts.
Yeah, and as an Asian American, you know, my mother is a Viet refugee, and my mother came here with her 8 siblings, my grandmother, and none of them spoke English, and they all went off and got multiple degrees. I have one uncle who worked at NASA. I have like uncles who become doctors, engineers, one who is a top engineer at Ford, aunts who become doctors. We've all given so much to this society. You know, there is this stigma on immigrants that we come in and we ruin the country. But I can tell you that my family and so many other families, we come and we add to the fabric of this country, and we make it stronger, we make it better. And that is what it's like for all marginalized people in our community. We are all trying to just make a better life and add to our country and add to the foundation of how beautiful this country is. And so we do stand together. And I know that there is talks about people pitting one against the other, but if you actually look at it, we all stand next to each other. The marginalized communities, we stand next to each other, and we just need everyone to stand up and be as outraged as we are, to amplify what's happening to us, to acknowledge what's happening to us, and to denounce it, and to say it in your own words. You don't have to use the words that we use. Just say it's not okay. Just sometimes I don't even know what to say. I'm like, what's the right thing to say? I'll just copy and paste what somebody else said. Like, that's enough. Just get the word out. Just say that you stand beside us, stand with us, and help us make our lives safer.
Does it trouble you when you aren't seeing friends speaking up, or maybe other people with a platform like yours? I know it's hard because I think you take on the potential for a lot of trolling and a lot of hate when you put yourself out there, because it's like, oh, stay in your lane. But you're kind of like not worried about that. I mean, I feel like you've said, nope, this matters to me, this hurts me, and this is where I am, loud and clear. So I wonder if, you know, that silence is deafening. You just mentioned, you know, I'm looking at who likes my post or who is truly with us or truly standing up against it. And it does, you do have to put your neck out, especially as a public figure. So kind of how do you reconcile that? And are you urging your friends who have big platforms to say, it's time, speak up?
It's an interesting thing to say, stay in your lane. I'm an Asian American woman. If anything, this is my lane. I'm in my lane. But more than that, I'm an actress. So I don't understand how we can tell stories about people and then not care about people. So the people who are being quiet, the artists in our community who are being quiet, the politicians who are being quiet, anybody who has a platform that's being quiet, and they protest that they are people who care about people, and yet they're quiet when it happens to the Asian American community. That to me is telling. That to me is people who are in no lanes. They're just following the lanes that will that's leading them to whatever glory they want. But for me, I don't call friends and say, will you post this, will you do this, because they're seeing it. I can see on stories, I can see who sees my stories. I can see what's happening. I can see how many are not saying things and how many are saying things. And at the end of the day, I'm not somebody that likes to push my beliefs on other people. I'm going to stand up and do what's right. When my friends say things, repost things, it's incredibly moving and touching for me. And I, reach out to them personally to say thank you. And there have been a large amount of my friends who have, but there's also a large amount that have not. And to your question, if, about what that feels like, that if the silence is deafening, the silence is not deafening. The silence is louder than anything that I can imagine. Like, it's happening right now. We went through something so monumental with the Black Lives Matter movement, and you saw what happened to our country, you saw what happened around the world, and everyone got up and was outraged. And when you see how quiet it is now, it just makes all of that, to me, by some of these people, seem performative. It's the only word I can think of. I'm like, oh, you guys would, oh. But it's not like I didn't know that. Sometimes you see things with people, you go, oh, you're probably doing that because it's the cool thing to do. It's the trendy thing to do. But the truth is, you really don't know who you are until you're put into the fire, and then once you're put into the fire, you can say, like, I am this person. I think a lot of us, we go through life thinking like, God, what would I do if I was in this situation? And there are ways that we like to think that we would be like, oh, if this happened to me, I would do this. Or if I was offered this much money to do this, I would say no. Or I would, there's all these things that we think about, what if, but you truly never know who you are until you are put into that situation, until you're put into the fire. Are you the person who runs back in to save people? Or are you the one who keeps running the other way? And I'm not saying that if you keep running the other way and you save yourself, that's a bad thing. Because, there are people who just need to simply survive the fire. But then there are other people who survive it, turn back around with buckets of water and try to put out the fire. I just think in this time, when you're seeing people who come in with like tiny little caps of water during, Black Lives Matter, and they're like, okay, this is enough. And they're able to pat themselves on the back and think that they've done it. But if you care about people, if you care about the marginalized people in our community, if you are anti-racism, then you wouldn't be so quiet right now. And that's why it matters when we have media stepping in right now. I mean, I'm clocking that as well. The people who've been reaching out to speak with myself and Sam to try to help us amplify this. It really matters. We need help. We need help to be safe in our country, and we need help by people amplifying and people being outraged for us.
And hopefully it's not just on our shoulders as Asian Americans, as the Asian American reporter or the actress or whatever. And so I feel like, and you tell me if you think this is happening at all, but are you encouraged by the fact that more people are speaking up, and that people like the younger generation, I feel, is just so much better, and they care less about, putting themselves out there. I feel like on social media, there are more opportunities for these messages to go viral. I was just listening to a panel with Connie Chung, from a totally different era. And her world was like, no opinion, no feelings, no no identity of who you are. You're just a journalist. It's black and white. And I feel a little more permission, I will say, for myself as a journalist to speak on these, because I bring my whole self to my job. I bring the fact that I'm an immigrant. I bring the fact that I'm a woman, or that I'm an Asian American. And it feels a little bit more like I can still say I'm objective and that I'm looking for the truth and reporting accurately, but I can also acknowledge that I'm Asian American, and these crimes, hit me maybe in a different way. So I wonder if are you encouraged by the responses that you're seeing, and perhaps a corner that's being turned on the attention brought to crimes against the Asian American community?
Well, that's really interesting, because Connie Chung was a top TV journalist during a time when being an Asian American also meant keeping your head down and just hitting the minority quota and being a good employee and keep going. And Connie
Exactly.
Chung is somebody that I idolize. I love Connie Chung. I think she's amazing, and she really did so much for our people. And to be able to see someone on TV who looked like myself, my mom, my aunts, meant so much to me. But she was on television during a time when it's important to, especially for Asian Americans, we don't cause any waves. And now we're in a time where we want people who are on our TVs, who are people who are influential, to let us know what their experience is. That's why it's important to have, Black, Asian, Pacific Islander, LGBTQIA people who are any marginalized group. It's important to have them in different mediums so that there are so many people that can connect with them, because representation matters. It truly does matter. So seeing people, connecting with you, knowing that you are also an Asian American like me, I know that there's a shorthand that you and I can speak on. I know what your mother's like. You know what my mother's like. We grew up in a certain way, and we have that connection. And it's important to amplify that, because for so long, white was the standard. White people in my business can play every role, every ethnicity. And, when you are, if you're a minority, you can only play this subsection. And usually it was just like, when I would get a breakdown for a role, it would be Black, Native American, Asian, Latina, and it'd be all of us together. And then if it was a white character, it'd be like, we were looking for a white woman. And so it was interesting, because if you're a minority, you're just kind of grouped into a minority. And it's important that we have platforms where we can speak about our existence. We can speak about what it's like to be us, so that more people hear it. And so that the white narrative is not the narrative, that we can have a narrative that fits for all of us.
Have you experienced any negative reaction? Have you experienced any blowback from being so vocal on this?
No, but I also don't check that stuff. I don't have Google alerts. When I look at replies, I will, especially with the stuff with Sam, I'm trying to find stuff so I can help send it off to the NYPD. But I don't look enough. I don't look enough to see it. And if I do see something like that, I have conditioned myself to just move on really quickly. Because a lot of times the truth is that when you actually meet the people, if you've ever seen them, and I've been to enough like events where you end up meeting people, or now with social media, you're able to see like what certain people, like what they look like. And a lot of them, what I find in my experience, have been people with white privilege. And that stopped me in my tracks a long time ago, way back in the day, like before I was on the Daily Show, like when I was on G4 back in the day. I remember just clocking it and wanting to like see like, who are these people commenting, and then going into a deep dive onto their MySpace pages or Facebooks and trying to understand. And it was very clear as soon as you saw it, it's a lot of people with white privilege, and they're speaking about me in a way that I was like, you just don't really get me, and or you don't like that I feel comfortable existing. To be a minority in this country is a protest in itself. Just to exist is a protest to some. Just the fact that we feel that we are allowed to be here talking on the Today Show seems like a protest to some people, that we should be really putting our head down and just being happy that we're allowed to be in this country. So to simply exist and to reach for the stars is very offensive to some people. And once you realize that, and I'm like, oh, it's like if you find out that like a Nazi is mad at you, you're like, well, you're a Nazi. Like, I don't think I really care what you have to say. And so when you see there's a lot of hate, a long time ago, I learned that, and there's a lot of hate. I realize it's coming from people that I don't really care to hear it from. But that doesn't mean that I don't take criticism. I allow myself to be clocked and understand certain things. But when I'm speaking about a situation like this, I can't see any real blowback, because I don't open the door to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, those are really all the kind of questions that I really have. I
Mhm.
guess if you could just talk a little bit about, like, how did you know Sam? Why did this matter so much to you that you put it out?
Well, Sam is a friend of mine. We've met through our mutual friend David Yee, who's an amazing author, Korean man who's is so brilliant. And it always matters to me. I see my family, I see myself, I see my mother whenever I meet any Asian person. That's, that especially being an American, when you see someone else who looks like your family, when there's not that many of us, in our country,
Hmm.
uh, I always had that connection. And so then when I saw that happen to Sam's mom, it was heartbreaking. It's always heartbreaking, but when it hits so close to home, and also knowing what his mom is doing, his mom was doing the same thing my mom would do, which is don't look at me. It's okay. I don't want to be the victim. I'd leave, just, it's fine. It's fine. I don't like the attention. Um, and that broke my heart. And that video is shocking. I mean, she is hurled through the air to the point where she's horizontal. Her feet are still flailing. She hits one of those metal newspaper stands.
Hmm.
The gash in her head is it's so intense. It's so intense. It's like how that can happen to somebody, and she can go home and think it's okay. I don't want to make a fuss. It it broke my heart, and I said not. I said talked to Sam, and I said, I know your mom doesn't want to, but we got to do it, and we have to show our parents that this is a new day, that we will change the world. That they brought us here. They they paved every road for us, but now it's our time to go back and take them down that road and see all that they've done and see what they've done for us, and we have to keep moving it forward.
Okay, you just hit a nerve for me because
uh
yeah, totally.
you get it.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah,
Totally. Because our parents have done so much for us.
so
Okay.
much for us.
And Olivia, is there anything else that I didn't ask you? A final closing thought or anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
No, I mean, we've talked about a bunch of it. I think on the biggest thing is, um I'm just so grateful to social media and to the internet and for everyone who cared about Sam's mom and who cares about the Asian American community right now. Everyone who helped us find this guy. It is something that makes me emotional every single day. I'm extremely grateful. We, you know, we didn't feel like we were seen, and and that day when I woke up, it was like that was for Sam's mom, that was for you, that was for me, that's for my mom, and I just eternally grateful, and to the NYPD, not only for staying on top of this and making the wanted posters and for receiving all those tips from social media, but for bringing Sam's mom tangerines for Lunar New Year. Like, that actually made Sam's mom smile. He goes, she actually smiled.
We know how
He's
hard
like,
that is to get an Asian parent to
yeah,
smile.
yeah, yeah. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.